I lost my sister in 97. My older sister, I lost my mom in 2012. I lost my brother and my grandmother the same year. I lost my daughter. Did I say my daughter?
You didn't yet.
I lost my daughter in, so my sister was 97, my daughter was 98. My mom was 2012. My brother, my grandmother passed a month apart in 2018. And in 2020, in the height of the pandemic, everybody's trying to grasp for whatever we're trying to grasp for. I was at a funeral for a childhood friend, and my dad and I were there, and I remember going home, and my dad called. He was like, Bobby's not answering the phone. Your brother's not answering the phone. So after leaving a funeral from a friend, we actually discovered my brother that day in 2020. So I've had to learn to grieve.
Hey everybody, I'm back with another episode of So What Success Stories. And today I have the honor and the privilege of talking to Dr. Karren Todd. Dr. Karren Todd, and one of her titles, let me say this, one of her titles is Director of the House of Black Church Studies at Memphis Theological Seminary. That is her job title, but she has so many other titles, and she's such an incredible woman who has meant a lot to me and a lot to the Memphis community and beyond. And she's just cool. And she is just cool. So she was my pastor. She was a pastor at my church, and which is where I met her, and I got introduced to her. And I just couldn't believe that this woman was just super cool. And
I couldn't either.
And she's my soror. She is my soror. So I can't wait to get into her story, because she is an incredibly strong woman with a beautiful story of resilience and overcoming some extreme challenges. So Dr. Karren, for introduction, but she's also Pastor Karren to me. Pastor Karren, introduce yourself.
Yes,
tell us a little.
You did a good job. Kudos to you. You did good. I am Dr. Karren. Well, this is one of the things that I say. I'm Dr. Karren, Coach Karren, Pastor Karren, but I'm always Karren.
I love it.
So whatever title people put before it, a lot of times it just depends on when they met me. So I know when I met you based on what you call me. But yeah, I'm always Karren, and I can do doctor. My mom named me Karren, so I answer to it. I'm not offended when people don't put the handle, on the name. But I am the director of House of Black Church Studies, and that's a new role for me. Started here in January of this year, January of 2022. I am also the executive director of Power Ministries Incorporated, where we have some great initiatives for women and teen girls. I am also a licensed professional coach. So I have my own coaching practice, empowerment coaching and consulting. And I just love to help people in general, not just women, help people in general to see more, do more, and be more. Just kind of living your best life, as we say now, but being able to do that, but in every area of your life. Mm-hmm. So when I am Pastor Karren to people try to put me in the little, the envelope that says Jesus or the envelope that says religion. But I am grateful and I am graced to be able to operate in ministry and the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So it's not just in church. I also speak at Memphis-Shelby County Schools. I've spoken at FedEx. I've spoken at, I was about to say the Mid, Regional 1, but just different places, because we need help everywhere we are. You know what I mean? Everywhere we are, we need some help. We need some self-help, some self-awareness. We need to learn how to manage trauma, manage anxiety, just all these different things. And it doesn't just happen at church.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. Also your mom and a grandma. Talk about that a little bit. Talk about where you're from.
Yes, I am from Memphis, Tennessee, born and raised, which is, I think, something that people in Memphis say all the time. I am born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I am a mother. I am now a new grandmother for 9 months, I want to say. I've been a grandmother.
Isn't that people
always, it is. People always ask, so what would they call you? What were your grandmother? I have paid enough dues. I am old enough. I am mature enough to be called grandmother. And
So
I
I
want all the
wasn't.
syllables. I
Yes,
want
I
all the
love it.
syllables. I
I
want
love it.
like grandmother. Can we have some Grey Poupon? I want all of it. I want all of it.
I love it. I love it. And you know, I'm sunshine because I wasn't old enough. I wasn't mature enough,
Right.
but I became.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my name. Well, welcome
Mm-hmm.
to the Grandma Club, the grandmother club.
Grandmother.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you have had an amazing background, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and I can't wait to share your story. So let's get into it.
Okay.
In this program, I have what I call the So What Success System. It's my belief, and I truly believe it is yours too, because what you do is similar to what I do in a lot of ways. But it's my belief that if a person can learn how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices, they can have what I call so what success. And that is success in spite of anything you go through in life. And so my first question to you is talk about some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to where you are today, to become Dr. Karren Todd and all the other titles that you have.
I think just right now, I would probably say the biggest obstacle was me. But
I can relate.
with me, my thought process, my sometimes lack of a thought process, my opinion of myself. So I think that's something that I'm always overcoming. But outside looking in, when we talk about resilience, I think life change, just the changes that we experience in life, whether it is loss of life, whether it's death, whether it is loss of relationships, with divorce. So I think I'll land on dealing with loss.
Okay.
And overcoming the grief of that, and not just loss of life, because I have had, unfortunately, much experience with that as well. But I always slide in divorce when I talk about grieving, talking about breakups, when I talk about grieving, because we should go through a grief process when those things in our life, losing a job, we should go through a healthy grief process. And a lot of times we don't. We think we only grieve when somebody dies. But we grieve when our expectations are changed without our permission. So there are times where I expected to be married forever, right? I expected till death do us part, and us parted before death. So, because of that, there was a grief process, because I had to grieve the future that I thought I was going to have. And so that was difficult, but I had to learn how to do that. Unfortunately, in loss of life, I lost my sister in 97, my older sister. I lost my mom in 2012. I lost my brother and my grandmother the same year. I lost my daughter. Did I say my daughter?
You didn't yet.
I lost my daughter so my sister was 97, my daughter was 98. My mom was 2012. My brother, my grandmother passed a month apart in 2018. And in 2020, in the height of the pandemic, everybody's trying to grasp for whatever we're trying to grasp for. I was at a funeral for a childhood friend, and my dad and I were there. And I remember going home, and my dad called. He was like, Bobby's not answering the phone. Your brother's not answering the phone. So after leaving a funeral from a friend, we actually discovered my brother that day in 2020. So I've had to learn to grieve and learn to be in the process, and know that there are people all over the world that are like, Karren, oh my God, you're so strong. And I'm sitting like, not really. But it looks like, first of all, it looks like my strength. It is not. It is the strength of God. God said, in your weakness, I will be the strength. So that's what you really see. But you also see the fact that I've learned how to grieve. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's okay to fall apart. I know that it's okay not to fall apart. I know that months and months later, there may be a trigger. I know how to allow. And when I talk about grief, I talk about how for me, grief comes as waves for most people. But the way I like to look at it is if you go to the ocean or you go to the beach and how the waves come up and the waves wash on our feet and come out, that grief does that. And we have to allow it to wash over us and then allow it to go back.
Oh, that's good.
So I've had to overcome that obstacle of loss more times than I would care to have done it. But it has certainly made me a better person. It has made me a better mother. It has made me a better believer. It has made me a better friend. It has just made me better, so overcoming that, overcoming those times of grief and those times of loss, they take faith. They take, here comes the preacher. They take faith. I found another F.
I'm here for it.
They take focus. I had to learn, and we have to learn to focus on what we want, and not on not just getting bogged down in the loss, but what are the good memories? What are the things that you remember? What are the things that you want to hold on to? So my faith helped me, my focus helped me, and my flexibility helped me, especially in divorce. That there was a change happening. In changing jobs, there was a change happening, and I have to now be flexible with where my life is going, flexible with what God is doing in my life, flexible with what I thought my goals were and where I was headed. And I started out, I was a middle child. So now I'm an only child. So life is interesting. Life is very interesting.
It is so interesting. And I watch you, and of course, I follow you on Facebook. And so I've witnessed you deal with a lot of the loss that you just talked about. And I was one of those people like, oh my God, and I say one of those people
clutching the pearls. Right?
I know. I'm like, where are my pearls? I'm like, oh my soul, how is she doing this? And then you'll write your long messages that I read every word of, and along with 1,000 other people who follow you, read every word of it. And I'm like, okay. And then when you talk about your strength coming from God, I feel it too, because people describe me as strong a lot. And I'm like, really? But
that was the promise though, right? That was the promise.
Yes.
That when you are weak, you are strong because of God's strength. So what people are witnessing is God keeping God's promise.
Yes, I love that. I love it.
That's
and you know what else? When I think about the extreme loss that you've had, I have not had that. I have not. But I can relate to the divorce part. And I remember thinking about people were congratulating me when I got divorced. And people have parties and everybody's story and experience is different. But people were congratulating me. And yes, I was glad to be out of the situation. But what I said was, and what you hit on, I said, divorce feels like death. And I'm like, even though it wasn't a good marriage, this still feels like death. And so when you spoke on that, I'm like, I could totally relate to that. But I appreciate you sharing this, Pastor Karren, though, because there are so many people who go through loss. We all do, actually, right? On different levels and different ways, right? But not everybody knows how to deal with it. And so I'm glad you talked about that. I liked your 3 F's, and I think that that's super important. I really did. I like the 3 F's, and all of them are very, very important. But I think that was powerful, and I hope that everybody who watches this can receive this. And I do believe that somebody is going to be like, okay, I can get through this.
And can I let me jump in and say one other thing, because I heard myself say I was an only child, and that's from my family of origin. So that when the family I grew up with, I am the only child left. I do have a sister who has been amazing for me and with me. We met in 2015 maybe. So not long ago. We met as adults, and being able to have her in my life, God knew what God was doing. Even through the times that may have been that we would frown upon, you know what I mean? But like, well, wait a minute, what? You got another sister? I am grateful that God does all things well.
All things.
God does all things well. So those things, even as being a teenage mom was not easy, but God has used that and crafted that, and you have become a blessing to so many young girls and older girls that needed therapy because they were a teen. You know what I mean? So so God does all things well, and that whole working it out for your good.
I
God
truly
does all
believe
things well.
that too. I
God
received
does all
that
things well.
in so many ways. And even with me being a teen mom and now my child is grown and I'm out here living my best life.
Right.
That's why it happened so early.
Right.
I get it.
Because your friends are still like, oh, what tuition? Wait, what are we doing? And you're like, I'm going to Italy. That's what you're doing.
but that is so true, and it's so powerful. And I think that we have to look at our situations while we're in those situations to think about, okay, what's the good in this? This seems horrible. And it is horrible in a lot of situations.
And it is horrible, and it feels horrible, and it looks horrible. Exactly. But if I can just make it through it, if I can come through this on the other side, there is something that is going to be a blessing for me. There's something that God is going to use this in a way that I cannot imagine right now, but it's going to be seen because God works. So yeah.
Absolutely. All right. The second part of the Soul of Success system is eliminating excuses. So we all have obstacles. We talked about that. We all have obstacles. We all had obstacles, and we will have new obstacles tomorrow. But we can either deal with those obstacles or we can make excuses for those obstacles and not move past them and not be all that we can be. Talk about some of the excuses that maybe you made or the ones that you knew you had to eliminate to get to where you are today.
I think, like most people, I am filled with excuses. And those, unfortunately, are the first things that pop in your head. The why you shouldn't, the why you can't, those types of things. I'm not smart enough. I'm not young enough anymore. Or some people, I'm not old enough. I'm not cute enough. I'm not, whatever it is, I'm not enough of whatever I think it should take for that. I'm not enough. But there's one thing that I know has always helped me eliminate excuses is to understand, like remembering your why is how they put it now. Understanding why I'm doing this. Why am I here? What was my purpose? What is my goal for doing this? And if I can always stay connected to the why, then I can eliminate those excuses. The problem with eliminating excuses is most times we don't want to. Excuses are comfortable. Excuses are safe. They keep us safe. You know what I mean? If I don't do that, then I won't be embarrassed. I won't be shamed. Nobody will talk about me. Nobody will ever know. So my excuse keeps me safe.
Yep.
And my excuse keeps me in my comfort zone, but nothing great and nothing magical happens in our comfort zones. All that good stuff kind of happens on the outskirts, once you step out of your comfort zone, then you're like, oh, now I can be my best self, or I can be the best version of myself. So our excuses keep us there. And because I know that, I cling to my why. But the reason why I want to do this is because I want to be a blessing to people. I want to help women. I want to impact teen girls. So whatever that why is, I have a gigantic why, then I have smaller whys. But making sure that you're connected to that why, and it's always bigger than the excuse. The excuse is there to make life easy, and life ain't easy. You know what I mean? It's just not easy. Yes. So whatever we face, whatever excuse we come up with, that's our brain, our mind trying to keep us safe. Don't get your feelings hurt. Don't get into that relationship. Don't, you know what I mean? So all of those things, and we live in that land of excuses, and it keeps us safe, but it also keeps us away from our purpose. It keeps us away from the greatness that God has placed inside of us. So that's one of the reasons why I eliminate excuses, but also how I do it is by just connecting with that why.
I love it. And we're totally on the same page with that. And so in some of my presentations, that's what I speak about is your why. And we even go deep into to writing it down and really recognizing it. Because sometimes people don't even really realize their whys or fully understand the depth of their whys. And when you do, that can help you eliminate any excuses. Absolutely. And you know what? And so for me, that's why I wear this shirt. That's why I have this brand. And so when you come with your excuse, I say, so what?
So what?
We absolutely can make an excuse for anything every day. Right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And then at the end of our lives,
I didn't have this. Nobody will do that for me. Nobody. So what?
And I promise it's changed my life. And that's why I believe in it so much, because I think if we can have that mentality, there's nothing that can stop us, right? So yeah, I just did some scary stuff. So that's my other thing, is do it scared. Do it scared.
Do it afraid. So, absolutely. That's the definition of courage. The courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing it afraid.
Do it afraid. Do it afraid. So I love it. I love it. I love it. If we can all remember our whys and focus on our whys, nothing can stop us and nothing can hold us back. Yes. Well, the third part of the So What success system is calculating choices. So I've actually watched you, observed you in some of the choices that you've made, and some of the choices you made have affected me.
Sorry.
So, in a good way. But I've always watched you and admired you, and and even when, like, I'll talk about that choice when you stepped down as a pastor at my church, I'm like, what? How is she gonna leave? But I also was like, oh, I see what she's doing. I see what she's doing, and it's, you are where you are now because you have made that choice. But talk about some of the other calculated choices you made throughout your life.
Okay. Well, actually, I'll talk about that one. I had been senior associate pastor for 8 years at a church that I helped, that I was there on a launch team at the very beginning. So actually, at that point, I had done, I think the church may have been 16 years old. So the last 8 years, I was senior associate pastor, which is number 2 in some people's minds. They're trying to rank, what does that mean? What does senior associate mean? I see you watching this, trying to figure out what senior associate. So I was number 2 in at one point one of the fastest growing churches in the country, and it was an amazing thing. It was an amazing ride, and at that point in my life, I could have rolled that till the wheels fell off. And it still would have been good. It still would have been great. Just, oh my God, she's still doing this and touching people's lives, because people kind of cycle in and out of church. So there would always be something. But God was telling me and showing me that there was something more. And in that place, in that role, in that space, many people would have just made that the pinnacle of my life, because you've made it. You know what I mean? You got clout in the city, you got clout, you've made it, you're doing it, so your name is known and people want you to come and talk and speak and share and all these. So that was and God was like, not so much. So that I remember the day I made the speech, because there were a lot of other things that happened building up to it, but I remember the day that I made the announcement to the congregation. And I remember saying that I've had the pleasure of walking with you. I've had the pleasure of teaching you. And in the time that I've been senior associate pastor, I've taught you obedience, and I've taught you faith. And at this point in my life, in obedience, I'm going to jump. And by faith, I'm going to watch God work it out in the air. And of course, now looking back, that was prophetic. then it was something that I was saying, that I was hoping, Lord, please work it out there. But in the 5 years from the day that I made that announcement, like to 5 years later, I remember sitting down and thinking about it. I had finished my Master of Divinity. I had completed my DMin, my Doctor of Ministry. I had written 2 or 3 books. I was a senior pastor, interim pastor at another multicultural church in Memphis. And just all the things that God did after that I would have never, ever been able to put my hand on if I had not let go of that great thing, because it was a great thing. Yeah. And there's an image that comes to mind. I don't know if you've ever seen it on social media. I see it. It pops up every once in a while. But there's an image of a little girl, and she's holding a teddy bear. She's clutching a teddy bear, and Jesus kneels right in front of her and has this gigantic bear like behind his back. and he's reaching for the small bear. And she's clutching it saying, but no, but I love it. And that's how I could have held on to that position. That's how I could have held on to that church. That's how I could have held on to that version of fame that I thought I had,
Yep.
that clout, that power. I could have held like, no, God, I love it. What do you mean? But because I let go of what I thought was my comfort zone, because I let go of what I thought was the best thing ever, God was like, cool.
You go,
how about this? Here is the bigger, right? Here is the bigger bear. Now you get to be an entrepreneur. Now you get to start your own coaching service. And I had no idea that I was going to go into the doctoral program. Mm. As a matter of fact, the person called me and was like, listen, you're late, get your stuff in. I was like, I don't think, no, you need references. And you were literally sitting beside me at an event. And I was like,
remember,
can you fill out this reference for me? They say I need a reference for the doctoral program. You're like,
I remember.
You were like, should it be me though? But yeah.
That's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said.
But that's how God moves, and that's how God works. And if we just stay connected, if we stay aligned, it happens. You know what I mean?
The other thing that you said earlier, though, and if we will step out of our comfort zones, if we will step, because that resonated with me, because I worked at FedEx. Nobody quits FedEx.
Right. You retire from FedEx. And sometimes they pay people to retire.
Exactly. You don't leave FedEx. So people thought I was losing my mind when I quit FedEx at, it's been almost 12 years since I quit FedEx. And I was, I was in my 30s. And so people don't do that. But I did it. And my mindset was very much like yours. And God has given me a big old teddy bear too, because I let go of it. So I love it. I love it. I love it. So you talked about how you've overcome obstacles, eliminated excuses. Now, and how you calculated choices, and you are proven. You are definitely a so what success woman. You are a so what success story for sure. But what is your personal definition of success?
So the interesting part of this question is, I had a radio show called SOAR, and it stood for success over and above reason. And I would often ask people, what was their definition of success, but I don't know if I ever really defined it for myself. So thinking about that, the thing that I can think of now is purposefully, I don't even know if this is going to make sense. So now I'm going to have to explain the definition. Purposefully prosperous is like the shortest definition that I can give, or purposeful prosperity, something like that. But as I look at purposeful, so I say purposeful prosperity, purposeful because I want to be my authentic self doing what God has called me to do, which is making an impact on the lives of others for the better. So that's the purpose. I want to be authentically myself. And people would try to put me in the pastor box, because I would have people, you got your shoulders out. Preachers don't wear their shoulders out. Something like Karren does. How about that?
Right.
So, and we go places, and I've always loved dance. I've always loved to dance. And I would go someplace, and of course, I'm from Memphis, so Trigger Man comes on.
That just reminded me at Latrice Bryan's birthday party. I was
like, the Memphis comes out of me. And so people would say, preachers don't dance. This one does. I did not take that from me. So I still get to be me. I still get to be humorous. I still get to make jokes. I still get to check people if I need to, if I want to. I still get to do those things, not maliciously, but I still get to be authentically me and still make an impact on the lives of other people. And the prosperity piece is just, I get to be successful in it. God gets to add to my life because I am doing what God has called me to do. So for me, that is success, and living the life I want to live. And I've never been driven by money, but I want to live a certain way.
Sure. Yes.
I want to travel sometimes. So my success is not a 6-figure job, high end. It's not that. I don't like to shop. So clothing and name brands is not success for me. But if I have enough money to go to a football game and sit in the seat I want to sit in,
Yeah.
and go to a jazz festival and be there the whole 4 days, not just because I can't afford, for
Yes.
me, that's success, that's prosperity for me. And so that your soul prospers, that I have happiness, that I have joy, that I get to walk in the room and bring joy to other people because God has blessed me with so much of it. You know what I mean? So I think that, yeah, purposeful prosperity, I think is where I would land with my definition of success.
So I love that. And before I get to the last question, so being authentically you, and I think so many people do try to put on this front and try to be somebody else and be like somebody else. And so I'm like you. And if you can authentically love yourself and be comfortable with who you are, then you connect with people and you respect people and you impact people. And that's who you are for sure. When everything that you just said, check people, dance, I was like, yep, that's her. That's her. And so even in being authentically yourself, I have to throw this in here that, I don't know, I've known you 10 plus years, right? There's still not a single day that I look at you or hear your voice and I don't think about your twin. It's like,
I'm like, my twin. Yeah.
And I still have to say that. So you're authentically Karren, Pastor Karren, Dr. Karren, Coach Karren, but I still see MC like all the time.
I got to meet her.
No, I saw her speak at your event, right?
So I literally brought her to my event so that I could meet her. How selfish is that, right?
I love it.
I brought her and I got to tell her that. I told her, I said, people have always said, I said, all of your famous life, because I'm older than she is, right? All of your famous life, people have always told me that I sounded like you. I said, but the thing is, I'm older. So I'm always wondering why they don't say you sound like me. And she was dying, like, right. I'm like, but I'm the oldest.
That's good though. That is good. That's true. So from now on,
of course, her voice is more celebrated, more widespread. You know what I mean? So of course I understand it. But that was just my little joke for that moment, because we were standing getting ready to take a picture. Hey, people, you would be amazed at the people that don't recognize my face, but recognize my voice.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised.
I'm out in public. I remember I was paying a light bill one time, MLGW, and the lady that was taking my money, and she was not having a good day, I don't think. But anyway, so she was like, what's your address? You know what I mean? So I'm trying to be up. And she said, and so I told her, Karren Todd. And she was like, are you at New Direct? I said, yeah. I knew that voice. She kind of pepped up a little bit. But that happens often. And I would always question that. And I would say, well, why is it that you don't know my voice? And we've got 20 flat screens in this sanctuary. Why don't you know my face? Why do you only know my voice? And years later, somebody helped me with that. She said, because they know your voice, because it was your voice. It was something you said that connected with their spirit. So when they hear your voice again, that connection resonates. She said, that's why they remember your voice and not your face, because it was your voice that was the blessing, not your face. I said, well, thank you and bless me. And I repent for whenever I said that it didn't make sense.
That makes a lot of sense. But you look like her too. So you look like her and you sound like her. All right. So my last question, and you giving advice throughout this entire interview. And I know you have so much that you could give, but what's one piece of advice that you would leave everybody with who wants to be successful? People want to be successful, but they face challenges. What's some advice that you would give?
This is something that I'm starting to do and starting to get better at. So I'm going to share something I'm actually working on instead of something because I know it works, because I'm working it. But being able to make decisions and with the thought of your future self in mind. So living life with the image or the thought or the concept of my future self in mind. So how I do that is, let's say my future self is at my goal weight, right?
I like it.
So when I make decisions like my future self. My future self would need this. My future self would get up and go to the gym. Because the habit of my future self, it's a habit for her.
I like this.
You know what I mean? My 5 year from now self would be prepared for a podcast and have the lights everywhere. So now I need to make decisions like she would.
I like that.
And it makes, because knowing who my future self, who I want to be in 5 years or whatever, my future self would say no to some stuff that my current self is saying yes to. There's some speaking engagements. There's some people, some friends that I have now, or people that not really friends, people that are in my circle that are probably taking up too much space in my life than they should. My future self wouldn't deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start making decisions now, like your future self.
That is good. That is good. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm putting that into practice as soon as we get out here.
And it works. When you get ready to go and do something, you like, my future self would not be concerned with me hurting their feelings, saying no. Because my future self values her time.
Yep.
And my future self loves taking a nap. So she'll say, baby, I'm not gonna do that. I'll find somebody for you.
I love it.
But I can't, so yeah.
I understand, I relate, and I got a list of my future self don't have time right now. I love it. Okay, on that note, that was good. The whole thing was good, but that was really good to leave everybody with. I thank you so much for everything that you are, all the titles, which are important, but it's just your heart, your sense of humor. In spite of all the challenges that you have gone through and all the loss that you've experienced, you are still genuinely and authentically Karren, and you bring so much light to so many people. And I just thank you, and I love you. Soror.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Soror, for having me. I am grateful. The invite lit a fire under me. So I am grateful for you being an inspiration of mine. To say, okay, Karren, you've been playing about this podcast, you've been talking about getting back on the radio, and I took 2020 was a year, and 2021 was my recovery from 2020, and so in 22, my word, because I do words for the year, my word was forward for 2022, forward, and so in moving forward, this is helping me to get my feet under me and go ahead and decide to say yes to some stuff and say no to some stuff and get it done. So thank you for having me and encouraging me the way you do, just through living your life.
Thank you. I love you.
Love you too, dear.